Welcome to Boots to Backyards, the podcast where veterans share their real stories behind the uniform and the life that comes after. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Fantastic. Thank you for having us.
Yes, well, thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know, I am Mo alongside Britney, and we created this space with one intention: to honor your journey, your service, and your voice. This podcast is sponsored by Momentus Real Estate Group, a woman-owned, veteran-focused company in Grapevine, Texas, committed to serving our veteran community with care, clarity, and confidence. Around here, there's no script, no pressure, no right or wrong way to tell your story. Just real people, real conversations, and real connection. So settle in and take a breath, and let's get into it. Oh, and before I start, Britney, my co-host, my sidekick, her creative brain went behind this, and she is so creative, and she's the one who put all of this together, and I just couldn't be so grateful for it. Britney, say a word.
Word. No, just kidding. No, I am super excited to be doing this. If you guys know of any other veterans that would love to tell their crazy stories, the ones that you say around the campfire where you're just shooting shit and just kind of reliving your time in service, we want to hear those stories. So I'm super excited to be here and really looking forward to hearing y'all's stories.
Yes, we are. Okay, so we're going to make this really simple. And, if you guys we're going to tell the audience who you are, what branch you served in, and just, share some stories with us and the audience, because I think they're really going to love them.
Mike, you want to go
All right. Hey, everyone. Michael Sadler here. I retired 1 September from the United States Marine Corps after 26 years as a helicopter pilot. I'm joined by my buddy Rob, who we served together, known each other for about 10 years. I joined the Marine Corps kind of on a whim, and I think Rob heard this similar story when I did my retirement ceremony. I'm from Texas. I'm married, have two high schoolers. In 1999 or 1998, I was a senior in college with no direction. I lacked clarity on what I wanted to do. My old man was a pilot in the Air Force. He did 25 years. And he said, "Why don't you join the Air Force?" So as a senior down at Texas A&M, I went to talk to the Air Force, and they offered me a navigator spot, and not an indictment or disparaging comment towards navigators, but my dad, as a pilot, said, if you want to be a pilot, then don't join the Air Force. A lot of times the military will offer you something a little bit less than what you want, or something different. They said, hey, come be a navigator, and you can be a pilot later in your career. To all you young kids who are going to join the military, do your research.
Never works out that way.
No, never. Do not trust the recruiters.
No.
So luckily my dad said don't do it, so I took a job teaching 8th grade American history. And then after a few months, my dad said, you don't like teaching? And I said, not really. I was about to take a job as a high school teacher in Cedar Hill, Texas, where I was from. My high school principal was going to hire me. I was going to teach down there. And my dad said, I think the Marine Corps has pilots. Up till then, I knew nothing about the Marine Corps. Frame it summer of 1999. I'm a recent college graduate. I have a girlfriend who's a co-ed at the University of Texas. And I called her up and said, hey, I just joined the Marine Corps. She said, what does that mean? I said, I don't really know. I opened up the Yellow Pages, which was a thing of the past, and I found the Marine Recruiter. I went down and took a test, and they said, you ship out in October. Little did I know, a few years later, while I was in flight school, September 11th would happen and change the trajectory of my life. And for 26 years, I tried to get out and move back to Texas, and we finally did it. Rob and I met in summer of
2015.
2015. Did deployment together, and also an Aggie, and I'll turn it over to him to give a little introduction about himself.
Excellent. Thanks, Mons. So Rob Handley, I'm a native of Flower Mound, Texas. Went to high school in Flower Mound, also a Texas A&M graduate. My story is probably not as interesting as Monty's about joining the Marine Corps, but I think for me, my father was a helicopter pilot. He was an Army helicopter pilot, so I didn't grow up around aviation per se, but, towards the later years of high school, he offered to pay for flight school lessons for me. So I really didn't want to do it. But, he pulled me to the side and he said, look, if somebody offers something like this, you should take them up on it. So I went and did it, and I ended up getting my license a couple days before I went down to College Station. I kind of thought that was, behind me. It was cool to, spend 60 hours in a plane, 40 hours, whatever it was, to get my license. And I got through my sophomore year, and I said, okay, well, what am I going to do? I kind of felt the urge to fly again, and my dad had bought a plane by that point. So I was coming home on summer breaks and Christmas breaks and getting in the plane with him, and I was terrible. It was dog shit because I hadn't flown in a long time. And he said, well, you seem to love this, so why don't you make a career out of it? You're young, go join the military. We got a long history of military service in my family. And so I said, okay, well, I want to be a carrier-based Navy fighter pilot. And so I engaged with the Navy for a long time, the Navy ROTC down there. Long story short, I was offered a Navy contract and a Marine contract within 15 minutes of each other on the same day. I walked out of the main library there, Texas A&M campus, and get a call from the ROTC and a call from the Marine recruiter out in town. Weighed my options, and the Marine recruiter said I can be a pilot because I passed the test. And the Navy said, well, I'm going to have to, compete for a spot. So ultimately, I, selected the Marine Corps. 2 college roommates that eventually became Marine Corps infantry officers. So there was a lot of, you're going to be a big pussy if you join the Navy versus, come join the Marine Corps.
Your wife will hear that.
That's fine. We've been married 13 years. I got 4 beautiful kids. Aww. I love you, Kathleen. I hope you hear this. But they basically were like, look, if you're going to be a big pussy if you don't join the Marine Corps with us. And I said, well, okay, fine. So that's why it was no, you laugh at that, but it's serious because I was 19 years old. I was like 19 or 20 when I signed my contract to go to OCS the next summer. Wow. So I was absolutely under a tremendous amount of peer pressure from, guys. I talk to them every day still. I text with them every day.
Did you do PLC?
I did 10 weeks.
What does that mean, PLC?
So it's a platoon leaders course. So that means that typically when you go to OCS, Officer Candidate School, they have many different programs, but they'll split it up into 2 6-week programs. So you'll go between your freshman and sophomore year, your sophomore and junior year, and then you go back the next summer for 6 weeks. And it's it's a way to kind of attract people who don't want to come back, right?
So I did not do PLC. I did what's called OCC, and it's straight 10 weeks. If I had done 6 weeks of the hell that Officer Candidate School in the Marine Corps is, I would not have gone back to the second 6 weeks.
See, I was PLC, but I was in an
combined.
I was in an OCC company, so I did 10 weeks.
What is the difference?
It's just timing and where you fit in, but
okay.
I could not, if I'd gone 6 weeks between my sophomore and junior year of college and then gone back to college and then asked to come back the next summer, I would not have gone.
Because they restart the whole thing. They
really hard.
Yeah, they flip your bags. They yell at you. You got to do.
I would rather do 10 straight weeks of hazing than 2 6 weeks periods separated by a year of college.
Yeah, that's what I did. Okay. I did 10 weeks after my junior year, but there is a lot of peer pressure, when you're sitting there, and I did a program at A&M, the Corps of Cadets, where you have to live on campus in these old 1980s dorm rooms. They've been renovated, but so you're kind of living in close proximity. And there's peer pressure to join and do things. So I joined the Marine Corps, commissioned in May of 2011, and then ended up starting active duty in October of 2011, and was fortunate enough to get a flight spot. And I did not ever become a carrier-based fighter pilot. I became a CH-53 Echo Super Stallion pilot, and thank God I did.
What is that? Tell me.
So 53 Echo is an assault support platform. So our mission is to. It is cool. It's really cool. Well, how about
it sounds really cool.
Mike's got a lot more hours than me in it.
So for just to put it out there, people who don't understand aviation, and there's a lot of people in the military. The H-53 is the largest helicopter in the U.S. Arsenal, and we move mass quantities of soldiers, Marines, airmen, and we do external lift of incredibly large, heavy equipment. So we are a Mack truck in the sky or a school bus.
That's wild.
Yeah. So everybody knows what a Black Hawk is. Yeah. The Black Hawk is made by Sikorsky. The The Super Stallion is also made by Sikorsky, but it's a Black Hawk on steroids.
It's the older brother.
It's
Okay.
much bigger than a Black Hawk.
Okay.
Much, much bigger.
Yeah.
So, but the funny thing to Rob's point about wanting to be a carrier base, so when I joined, I went and talked to the lieutenant who was the recruiter, and I said, hey, my dad is a C-130 pilot, or he was in the Air Force. Can I fly C-130s? Her answer was, yes, you can. Nobody told me that. The Marine Corps does have the C-130, which is a multi-engine turboprop airplane. But about 3 to 5% of all pilots go C-130s.
Very tough. Very tough to get a spot.
So I show up. I get to flight school in the fall of 2000, and they say 70% of you will be helicopter pilots. And I'm like, 70% of us are going to be. But the recruiter told me I could fly C-130s, and I have very few peers that went C-130s because they're just not that. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
It's not an indictment of anyone's. Now, I did get air sick going upside down, so there's another reason why I'm a helicopter pilot, vice a TAC Air fixed-wing carrier-based pilot. But fast forward to 2018, I was in a role as what's called the executive officer of the Marine Aviation Training Group in flight school, where all 500 lieutenants come through and 99% of them said, we want to be F-18 pilots, or we want to be F-35 pilots. And then I had to be the guy who said the
Those
same
are
thing.
the jets, right?
They
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Top Gun does a hell of a marketing job for
Yeah.
the military.
And then
Yeah.
I remember as I would tell these, 80% of you are going to fly helicopters or the Osprey, and you just see the light out of
Deflate.
their eyes, and I'm like, and I remember that feeling.
Honestly, I had no idea that the Marines even had like a flight program.
I think we're the 7th largest Air Force in like the world. I mean, the Marine Corps has got hundreds of airplanes.
Marine Corps is
I
incredibly
did
small.
not know that.
I think right now we're sitting at 172,000 plus or minus active duty Marines. What the Marine Corps brings that a lot of people, the Marine Corps brings what we call a MAGTAF. It's the Marine Air Ground Task Force. So we are a mini Air Force, a mini Army, and a mini Navy. And the Marine Corps is designed to be the tip of the spear. We go into a troubled area, we get a foothold, and then the Army comes in, the Air Force comes in, and then the Marine Corps goes home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, during the bulk of my career, the Marine Corps wanted to play in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we were really used as a second land army, which doctrinally is incorrect, and we're finally realizing that. But we are an amphibious-based force designed to go in, get a foothold, make first contact, and then get out, because we're so small. Because comparison, the Army and the Air Force both have nearly, they have like 450,000 people in each service. So you're talking about, 500,000 in the Army and the Navy, or Army and the Air Force, and the Navy's in the 300s, and then the little old Marine Corps has only got 170.
I did not know y'all were that much smaller compared.
It's under the Department of the Navy, obviously, but it's much smaller than every other branch.
I would say smaller but tougher. Like,
Yes.
right?
More rigorous.
Why do they call you guys jarheads?
It's typically the haircut, right?
Oh, is that why?
We wear these haircuts where it's very short on the side, and neither of us have that now, but it's very short on the side and slightly longer on top.
Is that why? Okay.
I thought all military professionals had
So
hair.
grooming standards are different across. Grooming standards, physical fitness standards vary across the services. The Marine Corps is the most stringent. As the Marine Corps will tell you, most people can't be Marines. Just because you want to be a Marine doesn't mean we want you.
Right.
And so it tends to attract a certain type of personality. I have an 18-year-old son who's about to go to college, and he's like, Dad, if I join the military, which branch would allow me to go see cool places like, Europe and Asia? And I said, well, which one would you want to serve and what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I don't want to be a Marine because that's...
Yeah.
Army, they're stationed at cool places. My brother was in Germany.
The Army does, just due to the Army and the Air Force have phenomenal locations. They also have really bad locations. The Air Force is in like Minot, North Dakota.
Fort Polk, Louisiana.
The Army's in Fort Drum on the Canadian border. But you're right. The Marine Corps doesn't have a large foothold. The Marine Corps is in San Diego, California, North Carolina, a little bit of South Carolina, North Carolina, the coastal Carolinas, and Okinawa, Japan. Really, that's 90% of where...
Japan would be pretty sweet.
We deployed together to Japan. We were both in
to Japan.
2015, and we left in November of 2015, right before Thanksgiving. In fact, I think a week or two before Thanksgiving.
I left in October. I was at Vaughn.
Oh, you were left in October, yeah. Well, I got out there, met him, 30 days later. So we spent some time on the ship, but most of the time we were, I would say, in Okinawa. Or at least I was on the ship. You were on the land most of the time.
So I've done.
Yeah.
You ask my wife and kids, they'll tell you I've done 7 deployments. Actually, done 6. I did back to back. I did a year in Afghanistan. We'll get to that. But my last deployment as an active duty Marine was Rob's first.
Yes.
Aww.
So yeah, we met in 2015, and I'll back. So in 2014, I was told I was going to Afghanistan. We left the first week of January. So my birthday is the 7th of January. I think we left on the 5th. And so we get over to Afghanistan. It's supposed to be a 6-month deployment. We're going to get replaced in July. Around March. This is just a perfect example of how the military, primarily the Marine Corps, I always would tell when I was in command that to my Marines, the Marine Corps does not love you. The Marines love you. And that's why I think most Marines, the Marine Corps looks at you as a cog in a machine. And I could hit a deer and wreck my car and couldn't come to work, and tomorrow they'd pull me out and put someone else in. So I'm in Afghanistan, and it's like March of 2014, and our admin officer, our G1, comes down to me and another major and said, "Hey, you guys didn't sign up for R&R. R&R is, I think, rest and relaxation. It's 2 weeks. It's designed for service members who do a year deployment. They send you home for 2 weeks." So we look at, her name was Jen. We look at Jen. Jen, we're going home in July. And she goes, I get a lot of those in my career. You didn't get the word. You guys are staying for the full year. Yeah, and I'm like, oh man. So
I bet your wife loved that one.
Yeah, so she's like, you need to sign up for R&R today. And so we're like, she goes, and all the good spots have been taken.
Oh man.
I
my first time.
had to call my wife back in San Diego. I think my kids were like 6 and 4, and had to say, "Hey, babe, I'm not coming home in July, or I'm coming home in July, but only for 2 weeks, and then I'm going back until Christmas." And then
that's so hard.
Funny thing is, we got back that Christmas, and then I joined.
You joined Wolfpack.
Yeah,
right?
and then deployed again in October. I wasn't supposed to. So, as a Marine officer and an aviator, you do a company grade tour. Yep. So company grade is lieutenants and captains. Then you go off and do a B-billet or school, and then you come back and do a department head tour. And so I was a major at the time, and I had already done my department head tour at a different squadron. And then because I had a check in the box, you're done with your department head tour, you've done your military education, your professional. That's why I was eligible to go to Afghanistan. They're like, you're going to Afghanistan. When I got back, I was coming up for lieutenant colonel. And I was coming up for orders to leave the West Coast. And I remember the MAG commander called me in his office and he said, "Hey, I know you just got back from a year in Afghanistan, but I need someone to be the XO at 466, Fort HMH, Marine Heavy Helicopter Squadron. 466 was the squadron Rob was in."
This is the first squadron I joined after getting out of a 53.
And y'all already knew each other, right?
We hadn't met
yet. No, not yet.
Okay,
yeah.
so
I checked in as a senior lieutenant who was about to pick up captain, which I did. He was the executive officer. So when I checked into the squadron, I actually checked in to him first. But he's obviously always been senior to me because he'd been in the Marine Corps longer.
So did you report directly to him?
Yes, and yes, he was the executive officer, and he was in charge of essentially all the officers.
So I'm with this colonel, and he goes, "I need you to go to Wolfpack and deploy again." And I said, "Sure, why not?" Our commanding officers, you have different levels of command in the military. In the Marine Corps, lieutenant colonel, which is an 05, they command squadron and battalions. And that's really the first command level you have, where you're selected by a board of colonels and generals, and they say, deem you worthy to command. And so the commander of the squadron and I had deployed to Iraq years before. So I said, okay, I get to stay in San Diego for an additional year, but I got to deploy 7-8 months after I'd just spent a year away. So I went home, told my wife, hey, they want me to do this. And she's like, that's fine with me.
She's like kicking you out the door.
Yeah, so and because we were, friends with the commanding officer and his wife, because we deployed together earlier in our career, I called him up and said, hey, you need me to be your XO? And he's like, yes, I don't have enough majors. So I said, okay. And that's where we end up meeting. And my wife and his wife are good friends. They live here in Trophy Club.
North Lake.
Oh, they're in Trophy Club. No, Rob.
Geo, yeah.
And
Trophy.
I just had lunch with him a few weeks ago.
I saw him at your retirement party, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was at my
Yeah,
retirement
he's
party.
doing good. He's
So,
doing fine still, yeah.
yeah, so my last deployment, and on that deployment I was selected for Lieutenant Colonel. That was my last deployment as an active duty Marine, and then the last 6 years I just was at
I love that y'all are still, like, y'all are both here. Like, y'all are so close to each other.
We live 20...
Yeah.
Yeah, we live 20 minutes apart, 25 minutes apart max, depending upon how traffic
I mean, how, like, did y'all know that always? Like, is that something
we knew we were
you've
from
learned?
Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, so you knew that.
But, I just found out last week he went to the same high school my kids are at.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I knew he was from Texas, and the Marine Corps is very small, and it's very, very tight-knit, and when you deploy with individuals, you tend to stay in touch. And,
Yeah.
Like I said, I retired in September, and I haven't gone back into the workforce, but I've been spending a lot of time exploring the different veterans organizations. And what I've noticed about the Global War, the GWAT, the Global War on Terror service members is they don't go to the VFW necessarily. They don't join the American Legion. They don't go to, not that there's anything wrong with those organizations. I've joined them all, but I don't really... And I think it's because of social media. And we have the ability to stay in touch.
Yeah.
Jokingly before Rob and I were talking, I got my first cell phone as a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps in 2000. That was the first time I'd ever got a cell phone.
Was it like the size of a foot?
It wasn't that big.
Like the Nokia
but yeah. My area code is 361, which is Corpus Christi, because back in 2000, 2001, every time you moved, you had to change your phone number.
God, yeah.
They still charge you long distance because you
roaming.
might remember, that after, they charged you more before 7 or 8 p.m. And so, I would call my then girlfriend when I was a young lieutenant, who's now my wife for 25 years. I would wait till, after 8 o'clock at night to call her because it was cheaper. Now that doesn't exist anymore. But so I got a cell phone in Pensacola. And then I changed it to Corpus, and then I never changed it. So I've had a Corpus Christi cell phone since 2000.
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I would too.
I mean, you really don't need to change,
If I changed my cell phone number, I don't think half my friends would ever pick up the phone.
I know.
He knows phone numbers anymore. But yeah, to Rob's point, Rob, I had a retirement ceremony in August, and a lot of the Marines I deployed with when I was a young lieutenant and captain came because I stay in touch with them via the internet.
Yeah, it's easy.
Right.
And so I think a lot of us get that, when people leave the service, the number one thing they say is, they miss, they don't have a purpose, mission, but it's really the camaraderie. And I'm a pretty avid reader, and there's a author, he's a war correspondent, Sebastian Younger. He did Restrepo.
Yeah.
He's actually in the new Marine. Have you seen the new Netflix Marine?
I have not watched it. I've seen it.
There's a new Netflix documentary on the Marine Corps. It's really good. It's only 4 episodes. But Sebastian Younger's on there. Sebastian Younger wrote a great book called Tribes. And part of the theme of that is on, we're tribal. And size of tribes, and we need people that survive and get along, and
Absolutely.
that a lot of service members when they leave, and this is a changing theme in counseling and psychology because there's a couple of veterans counseling organizations that I've met and become friends with, that what people are being classified as PTSD is not PTSD. It's really the lack of camaraderie. And I don't know, I can't remember the what they're trying to call it, but when you come up and you risk your life, so we were helicopter pilots. It's an incredibly risky, dangerous mission. I used to tell people I manage risk and I manage, danger for a living. And so you bond very quickly with those people. And then when all of a sudden that's gone, there's an emptiness in you.
Of course, it's like you're dealing with a loss.
A lot of times that's misclassified
Of course.
as, post-traumatic. There wasn't, we weren't necessarily, exposed to it, and we were exposed to traumatic events, but I think because the way the military works is it's just years and years and years, it eventually builds up, and then all of a sudden you're out, and you miss that.
It's like an adrenaline dump almost sometimes, where you do something that's adrenaline inducing, and then you feel kind of an emptiness. I mean, I know that I was fortunate that when I left active duty, I transitioned directly to graduate school using my GI Bill.
That's awesome.
And I went to a graduate school that had a veterans club, actually wearing their hat, went to business school. So I immediately was able to plug into a group of, about 30 to 40 veterans that were around my age, because they had all done 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the military. So I was able to kind of put a Band-Aid on that. But then even leaving, business school a couple years ago and then going into the corporate world before I started my own business, I remember walking in there and it's like, I don't have anything in common with any of these people here. They're sitting in front of the computer, they're very good at their jobs, and I'm like, 2.5 years ago I was flying helicopters and I was, in Iraq. And so you do kind of feel an emptiness, but you have to fill that with something productive. And if you don't, then that's where I believe at least veterans fall into self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, other types of destructive behavior, issues with their family, so.
Something that I picked up too, so I used to be a recruiter for most of my career, and I would talk to so many veterans, and they were transitioning, right? And a lot of them, they were homeless. They had no idea how to take their skills from the military and put them into a real world, regular, boring kind of job. And I think what was missing a lot of times was there wasn't anything to really bridge that gap for them. They didn't have, at least back then, they didn't have anything, because y'all are all about order, right? From the moment you wake up, your day is planned. You know what you're gonna do, right? You know what you're gonna wear, you know everything. But when you get out, you don't really know anything. You have a lot of time, you have a lot of thoughts, and like you said, you just don't have that same community that's kind of the driving force. So I think a lot of them, when they don't have that structure anymore, they become unstructured themselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely
and
correct.
Then when they just get low enough, they're in a hole and they don't know how to get out of it. And that's something that I've found over my career, and it's now I'm seeing so many more veteran companies that are popping up, and they're specialized in certain things to help transitioning veterans. But I just wish there was more of a bridge for them to put their skills to the real world. Is there anything like that today?
So there is, and the military's developed, and it's still maturing, a program called Skill Bridge.
Right.
Okay.
Which is an internship that can last anywhere from 30, 60, up to 180 days, where a service member can apply and go work for a company, basically still paid by the government, and learn that, Lockheed Martin, AT&T, Wells Fargo, and do that Skill Bridge, learn from the company, and then eventually, get hired by that company. And it's still, now, with anything in the military, when it first came out, good idea, not great execution. It's gotten a lot better, but there were a lot of people that took advantage of the program. And then some of the services realized that, and so as with a lot of things, they make draconian, knife chops and go, okay, hey, these guys are abusing the system. Now we're just going to cut the system, cut it. And I did Skill Bridge, and so I retired as a colonel in the Marine Corps, which
that's awesome.
Colonels do not. At least in the Marine Corps, the mindset is colonels should not do Skill Bridge. I'll back up and say, because Skill Bridge, they believe, is designed for, the 18 to 25-year-old Marine. I argued and was approved by my 3-star general. I said, sir, I've spent 26 years in. I'm institutionalized.
That's all you know.
I don't know anything else.
Yeah.
And so he approved. Now, the Marine Corps limits to 90 days of Skill Bridge for colonels. And so I did a 90-day Skill Bridge. I applied to several through a company, or through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, called Hiring Our Heroes, which is a phenomenal program. So Chad, if you're out there listening, you do great. He's the Texas manager of Hiring Our Heroes.
Awesome.
But 200 companies, there are about 800 people in our cohort. And then you basically submit your resume to companies in the program, and I submitted to JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo. I said, you know what, I want to try something different and go and look at commercial banking finance. And both of them offered me fellowships, and I did one with Wells Fargo. So I did 90 days with Wells Fargo here in Irving. It was Allie Nelson, if you're listening, she's great. She was the program manager for it. Her husband was a Marine. And Wells Fargo is a very pro-military. They want to hire military.
I've heard that.
The problem I ran into is just the levels of where they want you to move in. And I remember talking to Allie, my manager at Wells Fargo, and said, hey, look, I understand I don't have the corporate knowledge, and so I'm humble enough to realize I have to take a step back. I was just not comfortable with how big of a step Wells Fargo wanted me to take. I'm not going to lie, a colonel in the Marine Corps in the military makes really good money. They wanted me to make about 20%, not 20% less, but 20% of what I was making were some of the job offers that I was being pointed to, which is fine. And that's just a pure lack of knowledge. To your point, you serve in the military, you develop some soft skills that are kind of intangible, but resiliency, adaptability, the ability to critically think and attack and solve problems with limited resources. Not all of that necessarily can be translated on a resume.
Yeah.
And I had a great conversation with a very senior member at Wells Fargo who said, you should be able to come in and take a managerial role, but we don't yet understand how to do that.
Right.
And so culturally, it's hard for us to allow that. And so we need you to join in a much lower level and work your way up. And so it just didn't work for me, and I was fine with that. But it's explaining to the recruiters those intangibles that service members can bring. They have a very hard work ethic. They work long hours. They usually don't complain.
They think on their feet.
They do, and so there are companies, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot more veteran-based companies grow.
Yeah.
If you look just in the tech and the defense industry or the AI industry, Shield AI.
There's a ton of them.
John Albers, if you hear, John Albers is a retired Marine.
Give me a call. I'd love to talk to him one day.
He's a retired Marine and an Aggie.
Yeah, great guy.
Come on our show.
We should call him. I might be looking for a job if my company doesn't work.
I know John.
Do you really?
Yeah, John mentored me a few months ago as I was transitioning. And he put me in, when I told him I wanted to go into the banking, he put me in contact with a bunch of bankers.
I might need to give him
His head of his director of HR is also a retired Marine Colonel who lives in Flower Mound.
Oh, nice.
Jason Julian, if you're listening.
How did you meet John? Just reach out to him?
Oh, us colonels.
Oh, yeah.
I met him at Moros. So every year there is a large summit. The Marine Aviation Readiness or Operations Readiness Summit is held in DFW every year.
Yeah.
And when he was, first starting his company, John Albers, I'm going to give you a little bit of your bios. John Albers, Marine Colonel with test pilot with a phenomenal history in the Marine Corps, got out and was working for the defense industry, maybe Raytheon, I think. And after a few years, just decided, I'm going to start my own defense aerospace company.
I love
and
that.
They are phenomenal. I mean, they have grown exponentially. They're into everything. They're based out of McKinney, and it's a veteran-owned company. What do veterans do? His first
hire other veterans.
probably dozen hires were former Marines.
I love that.
And a lot of them are
that is
Aggies.
the greatest thing that you can do for other veterans.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you still have their backs. You understand them. I mean, I love that. I really want to meet more veteran-owned companies, and I'd like to be able to even do shout-outs on here.
Oh yeah.
Have them come in, if they want to recruit people, let other veterans know. We want to bridge veterans to other veterans, veterans to other veteran-owned companies. You know what I mean?
Well, speaking of veteran-owned companies, Rob has started a veteran-owned company.
Did start my own company, yes.
But yes, tell me about it. What is it?
So the name of my company is Airlogics.
Okay, I like that name.
Thank you. It's an aviation safety and data analytics company. We're based out of here in Dallas, and
Awesome.
we do. We patented a bunch of interesting processes, and we developed what we're claiming to be as the first telematics-based SMS system, which is a safety management system.
Okay.
So what we do is we take in 14 different unique open source data streams, and we run it through a series of algorithms that we've written, and then we take all that data and we display it on a dashboard. So
Okay.
essentially what we're looking at is something called ADS-B data, Aviation Data Surveillance Broadcast data.
Okay.
So it's data that is broadcasted from airplanes. It's 128 bits of code that's broadcasted in half-second intervals. We take all this positional and telematics data, and we look for performance trends. So we'll look at what is the glide slope of the airplane, where did they touch down. But beyond that, what we do is we assign a risk score to that, or a performance score, essentially. So if an aircraft is, below glide slope, if the published glide slope is 3 degrees and they're coming in at 2.5, then we assign a score to that, and then we look at certain places of the airspace, and we assign risk scores to the airspace. So we're just taking risk management to kind of the next level.
So who are your customers? Is it like aviation companies that you're...
Right now we're in contract negotiations with the FAA, actually.
Awesome!
I had the privilege, the beginning of November, to actually, it took me 1.5 years to get to this level, but I got to go sit down with the FAA administrator, Brian Bedford, in his conference room, and give him an hour-long presentation of the technology that we built.
Wow.
And so we are now moving forward with the FAA, and now that the government is back open after the 43-day shutdown, we should be in more formal negotiations, but I got the green light from him. And being a veteran, I think, absolutely helped. Right. Because, as a veteran, as a pilot, he's a pilot himself as well, and he's the former CEO of Republic Airways. I was able to kind of speak to him as a pilot.
Right.
And so a lot of doors have opened up because I'm a veteran. Some of the commercial clients that we're, working with. We just went live with the software a month and a half ago.
Holy crap.
So it's a crazy story. When I left business school, I graduated in June of 23. I went to UNC Chapel Hill down in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Okay.
So I'm the second most famous Tar Heel graduate after Michael Jordan. Mia Hamm, yeah.
Who was married to an Army helicopter?
She was.
That's
No,
awesome.
a Marine. No, I thought a Marine helicopter pilot.
Was married to a Marine CH-53 helicopter pilot.
I don't think that marriage worked out.
It didn't. I know him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Maybe he can be on the podcast.
Maybe he lives in Scorsese up in Connecticut.
For him. Well, yeah, so I graduated from business school. It's like I wanted to do real estate. I wanted to do commercial real estate development, and I either wanted to be an industrial developer or a multifamily developer. And I knew I wanted to be in Dallas, and I knew that you've got fantastic multifamily and industrial developers down here, right? Stream and JPI and Hines and
We do.
Graystar and Ross Bros Company, Ross Bros Junior Hillwood. You've got all of them. So I really focused trying to get myself back to Dallas because it's one of, if not the best real estate city, growing cities in the country.
It is.
And my family's here. So both sets of parents, between me and my wife, cousins and brothers and sisters. And we had 3 kids, and we've since had our 4th. And so I get here, I get a job. I worked for this company called JPI. It's incredible, very veteran friendly. I had one of the best experiences that I could have ever had.
That's amazing.
Transitioning out. They're a faith-based organization as well, so it was, as a man of faith myself, it was really easy to kind of fit in there. But my boss Miller and Brian, and shout out to those guys, they took a real chance on me being a veteran and only having this academic background in real estate. Now, granted, UNC is a top 5 real estate MBA program. I did every real estate thing you could do. I maximized my education using my GI Bill, but I still had almost zero practical experience outside of a 3-month internship in Charlotte doing capital markets. So I get out here, and these guys give me the opportunity of a lifetime, and I said, okay, I'm going to be in real estate, right? I'm going to be the next Trammell Crow or Gerald Hines or whoever, right?
I love the confidence.
Which never materialized because I only worked in real estate for about 2 years. But about 2 months after starting that real estate job, my buddy from flight school calls me and says, hey, I've got this idea to create this software, and I just need some help. And I said, well, I don't know anything about software, but, you're a good friend of mine, and, let's get on a call, and we'll open up the PowerPoint, and we'll see what we can do. 18 months later, we had finished a seed round, and we raised several $1 million. And then now we're, in contract negotiations with the FAA. So what started off as a science project has now turned into, hopefully, a very viable business. So
that is so badass that you were able to take just an idea and just have no experience and just go all in. That's actually a question I was going to ask you is, did you come up with the concept of what you wanted to do, or were you partnered with someone and it was a back and forth, you're just kind of sitting around it would be really cool
And do you have any jobs?
there was something like this? Yeah.
I don't have any jobs yet, but I actually might.
this could be applied to, rail, to commercial trucking.
So we have three utility patents that we wrote, that fully awarded patents, and I've got one provisional patent, technically 2 provisional patents on the technology, and one of them that we think is going to move to a full patent here shortly. We filed our 5th one last week. But to answer your questions, yes, there's applicability for other transportation because we're overlaying telematics data also with communications data. Because if you have a GPS coordinate and positioning, and you know where they're going roughly, and that's what we do with FAA swim data with a flight plan, we can overlay communications on top of that, so you get kind of the full picture of what's going on.
That's cool.
But to answer your question, when I was first on with my business partner, when we got together, we filed for an LLC. We had a really stupid name, which we've since changed. It's not stupid, Mitch. It's all right. My business partner's name is Mitch. He's a great guy. I've known him for 15 years. But it started off as, hey, what do you think of this? And then I said, I don't know. I don't like this, or I don't like that. And then, we just got back on the phone the next night, and the next night, and the next night. And I'm not exaggerating. 5 to 6 nights a week, my schedule was I'd get home from work at 6:30, spend an hour and a half, 2 hours with the kids. My children are young. I'd get them to bed. And then from about 9:30 to about 1 a.m., I worked on the business.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I did that for 18 months straight, just working on it. And we went through thousands and thousands and thousands of iterations on going from an automated pilot logbook that does verified logbook entries that bounces it off an ADSB record to creating this huge integrated oversight program that we've made. And
did y'all make it in-house, or did you outsource the technology piece?
So I bootstrapped it for the first year, which was essentially, we paid for everything. My business partner and I, we said, okay, well, we need to go file a patent. So we found the best patent attorney on the planet, in our opinion, and we went and rewrote a patent with him, and that costs, a provisional patent with him is like, it's like $4,000 or something. So we split the cost, and then we did it. Yeah, and then we wanted to prove out our idea, so we went and we found a developer on Fiverr, and we paid him like $6,000, and we built it out, and we built out a pitch deck, and we didn't have any contacts in the private equity or VC space, so we just said we're going to build out this pitch deck. And I started working on the Excel model because it's like somebody's going to come along and we need to be ready. So we built it, and then we hired another developer to take the next idea we had and do a proof of concept. So then when we finally found, our source of capital, we had all this done and we could start immediately.
Wow.
But from there, then we went and we found a back-end development or full stack development shop, and they do all of our development, front end and the back end.
That's awesome. And you like that? Who is it, if you don't mind me asking?
What's the name of the development company?
That does the development, yeah.
They're based out of Washington, D.C. They're called District Cyber.
Okay. I used to work in the technology space, too, so I know a bunch of them around here. But
yeah, they're great.
Cool.
They do a great job. We've got some phenomenal people on the team located all over the world. But it's been a great experience because, our target customer has always been the government. And so I went down this path of, okay, well, I literally Googled, how do I get funded from the government? And I started to read up on the appropriations process. So I wrote a bunch of report language and met with probably a half dozen Senate and congressional offices. I was fortunate enough to go. I sat down with Brandon Gill in his office in
that's
Flower Mound.
nerve-wracking.
Oh, he's a great guy. And Jake Elsey down in the 6th District down in Waxahachie. So I sat down with both those gentlemen and I briefed it and I built some support, and then we talked to Senator Moran's office and Shelley Capito out of Alabama and just all the people on the appropriations committees, and I wrote dozens and dozens of pages of report language and applications and got smart on that process so that when it got through the committee hearings for it's THUD, Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development, by the grace of God, most of our language was included. Now that as I was able to go into the FAA and speak with the FAA, I can say not only do we have great technology that we've built, and we're a veteran-backed company and we're passionate about saving lives, but I'm also coming with appropriations language from
awesome.
The House and the Senate, on both the House and the Senate side. I got pretty lucky that way.
That is so smart. Like, did you seek counsel to like figure out like the necessary steps, or was it you literally just like Googling the things that you can think of?
I hired a lobbying firm, and the lobbyist that we use is great.
Cool.
So he helped provide direction. They don't do everything for you, and you have to, inspect what you expect, I guess. That's something I learned in the Marine Corps. And you can't, especially when it's your own business, you can't just direct somebody to do it and expect that it's going to be done to your standard. He's phenomenal. He helped set strategy. Cool. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to come in and do the nitty gritty and the paperwork because I want to make sure this is done to my standard.
Right.
So we did. You cannot build a business by yourself. It's impossible. So I've got a great business partner, a great back-end team. We've got a great investor, but it's been one of the most challenging things I've ever done. And when I talk with my business partner, he was an MV-22 Bravo pilot. He flew the Ospreys on several deployments and spent 11, 12 years active duty, and he's still a reservist.
What's his name?
Mitch Daniels. He's an East Coast guy.
Yeah, but especially if he's a reservist. I know a lot of people.
Yeah, well, he's I don't know. He's with Wing over there in Mag or in New
Mag
River.
41.
Yeah, New River.
Oh, in New River.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the endurance you have to start a new business, and like it's really the emotional regulation is the worst thing. It's terrible. It is. The life of the emotions of a business owner are up and down. I'll be in the highest high I've ever had after a call.
Split second.
And then the next second I'll get an email and I'll feel like I have to shut the business down. But I would not have the emotional maturity to do that if I hadn't gone through my time in the Marine Corps that taught me to compartmentalize. When you're in the cockpit, you have to be able to compartmentalize things and prioritize things. We have this phrase, it's aviate, navigate, communicate, right? Okay. There's a incident that is occurring within the helicopter, externally. First thing you need to do is fly the plane, right? Mm-hmm. Fly the helicopter. Don't forget what you're doing. Then worry about navigation, then worry about talking on the radio. And all those principles I learned in the Marine Corps have most certainly made it easier for me to start and hopefully run a successful business here in a few years. So
it sounds like you're doing an amazing job.
Well, I mean, honestly, we're still pre-revenue. We signed one of our first contracts.
Don't you dare make yourself short.
You got to humble yourself.
Awesome.
You got to humble yourself trying to start a business every day, because if you think that you're hot shit, you will be the next day. You won't be able to regulate yourself. So it's been a hell of a ride, and using my GI Bill to go to business school, learning those academic principles, to then working, because the first year of starting my business, I worked in corporate America, or the first 18 months. Both. So I was doing both, but that time in corporate America was helpful because I didn't know, when I left business school, I didn't know how to send a professional email to people. In the Marine Corps, you have to be very specific in how you do things, right? Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. Of course. You say what you say. And then depending upon their rank even is how you finish the email, Yeah. And so in corporate America, I was like, okay, how do I start off? Do I say hi, hey? Do I use Mr.? Yeah. And I had to cut my teeth a little bit in corporate America.
Growing pains.
It was a lot of growing pains. I didn't even have a wardrobe, really. I guess I had some things I could wear to work. But
I still don't.
I was going.
But you're taking it easy right now.
Well, yeah, I'm a different place than and I'm not assuming as much risk as Rob did.
So a lot of risk running this business.
Kudos to that, and kudos to his wife. You're right. You serve as long as I do, both with my VA disability and my retirement, and the retirement is good. I don't have to jump, and so going back to my fellowship. There were 11 of us that were selected for Wells Fargo. Some of them were, there was an Army captain who just left the service. He separated. He didn't retire and had a wife and 2 kids. And, he had no, I call it the golden parachute. There was no pressure for me, well, with the exception of my wife, since she started working at home. Now she's like, is this all you do all day? I'm like,
Let me do this.
Yeah, just sitting around watching Netflix all day.
Yeah. I remodeling. I rescued a 3rd golden retriever. I have 3 golden retrievers now. I do a lot of stuff around the house, but I have not full court pressed, pushed the throttles on I told
What
her
do you
by
think you
Christmas.
want to do, like, when you're ready to
So
back in.
I will probably
Come work for me.
Yeah, I'll come work for Rob.
I love that. I love
Rob
that.
knows I'm a hard worker.
I'll be the boss this time. I'll be the XO this time.
How
He was the captain.
flip turned.
So I've been taking a lot of coffees with mentors, and I've been getting the same. Why were you not looking at defense aerospace? So my wife's from Houston, Conroe, North Houston, Conroe, the Woodlands area, and she's always wanted to move back there. I grew up here in Dallas Fort Worth. I wanted to come back here, and I have 2 teenagers. My kids, they didn't get a vote, but they got an opinion. Their opinion was Dallas Fort Worth, so we chose to come up here. Her brother lives here as well as my sister and my parents. But how I sold it to my wife was,
Love this.
it's the defense aerospace industry is massive.
Oh yeah,
And
you
the
got
aerospace
Raytheon, you've got
Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed,
Boeing,
Safran,
yeah.
You got Bell.
Bell.
and-
Shield AI's up there too.
Yeah.
And
New
so,
ones.
and I have contacts at most of those places. So I said, if this corporate banking or doesn't work, or I interviewed a few months ago for a charter school district in Texas for a deputy superintendent. They've decided to wait until next summer to open the billet. But if those other avenues don't work, I said I'll just fall back on what I know. I mean, I was a pilot for 26 years, and so now I'm starting to. I read a good book or an article. I think it was
It was a really long article.
It was called 1,000 Cups of Coffee, but the concept is you network, you take 1,000 cups of coffee and through networking, and so I've started
heard that before.
taking these. I had 3 breakfasts this week with connections, and most of them are like, "Why aren't you going to defense aerospace? That's where your history is." And so I will probably go down that route.
Is that where your heart is?
I think so, because I can still get behind whether it's Lockheed, whether it's Bell. There's still a mission there. What I've found, especially, and not to disparage Wells Fargo, I didn't find the work that they were doing to be passionate. So I told my wife, said, I'm going to throw myself in the veteran space. And so with her in that space, she's been, kind of pointing me in the right direction. But I've been, I went merging vets in the MVP. I've been going to events with Cowtown Warriors, which is a veteran nonprofit that collects money throughout the year, raises money, and then helps veterans build houses, bills, cars.
Gotta get
Yeah.
connected with that.
There's
Habitat for Humanity?
I did that in college, but I haven't
Okay.
done that. There's a group called 100 Veterans Who Give a Damn.
I think I heard of.
Started by some American Airlines veterans,
Mhm.
and they meet at the American Airlines corporate offices in off 360, like I think 4 times a year, and they bring in veteran nonprofits who give their spiel, and then you donate to them. And so I've been doing that. Big deal here. There was an opening on the mayoral. The mayor of Flower Mound has a veteran liaison board, and a buddy of mine's like, "Hey, I'm stepping down. My seat's available." So I applied.
You're an elected official in the building.
Oh shit!
No elections.
Do you want more ice for your drink?
I went and interviewed
Yeah, good.
with the mayor and the town council and was selected. Granted, I think I'm the only person that applied. And so I've been doing stuff with those guys. Going to Vietnam Veterans of America. I went to an event with them. I went to... There's a great organization that you may not have heard of, and you can get your story, called the Texas Veterans Hall of Fame in Denton, Texas.
Oh,
And it's
wow. I've not
Veterans
heard
Hall
of
of Fame
that.
Museum. And so it's a museum. So a gentleman named Gary, Vietnam vet in the Air Force, runs it. And basically they have an online catalog of any veteran in Texas. You go in there and you put your story, and then they tell their stories. And so I hung out with Gary a few weeks ago. He's a great individual. And then so I've kind of just been jumping from, I went to a couple of different VFW meetings and trying to find, I joined the Military Order of World Wars, which you can join.
I can't.
But what I've found, and again, not an indictment, my dad was a member of MOWW. Most of these organizations are Vietnam vets. There's a few World War II vets still hanging out. But our generation does not join these type of, because the first MOWW meeting I went to, they're like, "Oh, you need to run." I was the only person under 75 there. And they're like, "You need to run for office." And I'm like, "I'm not ready to do that yet." I think it's because our generation like I said, they still stay in touch. I don't know if you met any of the 361 Marines at my retirement. So there were probably half a dozen Marines who I deployed with. When I got to Rob and I met in 15. He was a senior first lieutenant. I was a senior first lieutenant. I got to the fleet in January 2003 and did 4 deployments in 5 years.
Oh, that is, I can't imagine.
We were, and it was the core of the squadron stayed together. So probably 80% of the squadron stayed together. People came and went. But January 26th of 2005, we lost an aircraft in Iraq. And so 2 pilots, 2 air crew, but then there were 27 Marines in the back. 31 total casualties, or I guess 26 in the back. Well, this January was the 20-year reunion. So for the last year, I've been putting together, and we had a reunion, and we had about 50 of us met in in Houston. So like I said, coincidentally, the 4 crew members were all from Texas. We called it the Texas crew, but they're all buried at 4 different spots. So, I've been saying for years, telling my wife, I'm going to go. And I toured all 4 and been to all the grave sites. But a lot of the Marines, like I said, we keep in touch, hadn't been able to do that. And so I was like, hey guys, it's a 20-year reunion. I'm putting it together. So got a block of rooms at a couple of hotels. So I was still living in New Orleans, my last duty station. I flew in on a Thursday night. Friday, I rented a car at DFW. Coincidentally, they gave me a Dodge 2500 with 3 miles on it.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Brand new pick diesel truck.
3 miles?
3
Wow.
miles.
Wow.
Thank you, Hertz, for
I don't
my
think I've ever bought a car with less
Hertz
than
Gold.
11.
I got my hookup. So I got this car and I drive to Houston. We meet at a hotel, like I said, about almost 50 of us. So we wake up and I'm like, guys, we're going to be very regimented. Woke up at 6 a.m. We were at the first gravesite at 6:30. Staff Sergeant Dexter Kimball is buried at the National Cemetery there. And caravan with like 15 carloads worth of dudes all the way up to New Braunfels for the second. Yeah, so we stopped at Buc-ee's because most of the guys were from Texas.
You went from Houston to New
Houston
Braunfels?
up to New Braunfels. So he's buried. Lance Corporal Tony Hernandez from Canyon Lake was buried in New Braunfels at a small country cemetery up there. Tony's mom, sister, and like 25 members of his family met us there.
Wow.
It was phenomenal.
Wow.
And, plus us 50. We went and had lunch, Rudy's Barbecue, with Tony's family. Then we jump up and drive out to Menard.
Yes.
Menard. Menard is south of San Angelo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere.
Is that closer to the... wait, you said San Angelo.
San Angelo, yeah. So from
Where is that in comparison to San Antonio?
Northwest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this cemetery, and so Captain Chris Alaniz is buried in Menard. And I've been there many a times because when I was stationed in Corpus, I used to have to go to San Angelo Air Force Base because we had a couple detachments up there. There's probably 300 grave sites. I mean, it's in the middle of, it looks like West Texas. It's not quite, San Angelo's not quite West Texas, but it's barren, and there. So we got there around 4 p.m. at night, and then we pushed on to Weatherford and spent the night in Weatherford, and then woke up the next morning, and then Captain Lyle Gordon, also an Aggie, the final member of the crew, is buried in the vicinity of Stephenville, Texas, but out in the middle of the county of Gordon, in the middle of nowhere. So, have you ever seen the movie Jeepers Creepers?
Yeah.
Of course.
It's so
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
But that's what it looks like. It's on a dirt
I would have
road
died.
out in this old cemetery next to an old abandoned church.
Yeah.
But and probably maybe 100 grave sites, and about 70 of them have the name Gordon. But
Wow.
it's also the Daughters of the Confederacy have marked it as because there's a bunch of Confederate soldiers buried there. And so that's where, and Lyle and I were really close friends.
Was it a family? Is it a family?
It's a family
What do you
graveyard.
mean this might be dumb to ask. What do you mean the Daughters of
That's an
Confederacy?
organization. Like the Daughters of the American Revolution. There's
Okay.
about 25 Confederate soldiers buried in that graveyard as well. So it's
It's
a
definitely
historical
haunted.
site. Definitely haunted if you buy
It's
that.
gotta
Yeah,
be.
so-
There's a lot of
We need to
places
go
in
bless
Texas
it.
that are haunted.
But it and guys were getting lost, and there's no cell phone service. But
What an amazing
incredibly
concept.
surreal, incredibly cathartic. It allowed the 50 of us to have some closure. But then half of those Marines then came to my retirement, and I think but I've kept in touch with these Marines, and some of them only did 4 or 5 years because of social media.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember as a
That's
captain,
amazing.
in 2006, one of my lieutenants, do you ever know Lee Nolan?
I don't know who Nolan was, yeah.
Yeah, and he goes, hey, sir, you need to get on Facebook.
What's Facebook?
Yeah, and
You had to have a college.edu email to get on it.
That.
And so
When it all
I
started
talked to
coming
these
out.
guys on Facebook. I created a group on Facebook for this, and a lot of our squadrons have alumni.
I'm on them too.
On
that's
Facebook.
awesome.
So I think as I, weave in and out of these veterans organizations, and I don't find people my age, it's because they're still connected with their friends.
Yeah.
And it's the ones that aren't connected that I think are struggling. and
Right, for
find a way.
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I think that's like kind of the world right now. Like technology is so good, it brings you together, but it also creates so much distance.
it does.
Like I noticed that with my kids mainly, like because they feel that they're connected,
Yes.
but like they're not.
My son's
know?
always, I have a friend that goes there. I'm like, who's this
Yeah.
friend? What? And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
I text message
Yeah.
with them.
But this group of guys,
Oh.
guys and gals, this group of up to 50 guys, we were able to coordinate online, but then meet in person because
Yeah,
they're
I
old
love
enough to
that.
understand, and they have lives and families
Right.
and jobs, and they're like, yeah, let's go, and we met in person, and we hung
That's so
hung out,
cool.
and we drank, and we hugged, and we cried, and while you're right, the younger generation doesn't do that.
Right.
No.
Because
So-
they don't have the emotional, I don't want to say emotional intelligence necessarily, but it's a big
Right.
emotional intelligence is a huge part of communication, right?
Yeah.
And especially nonverbal, I feel like kids these days, they don't quite pick up on the nonverbal communications and like how to even connect with people in person.
you see it in the military.
Very difficult for them.
When I was I commanded a 53 squadron, 20 to 22, and the Marine Corps tries to provide on its bases activities for young Marines. We're great at gyms, and then we have enlisted clubs, staff and SEAL clubs, officer clubs, and the enlisted club has always been a great place for young Marines to go and build that camaraderie. But now you walk into them and you see a lot of Marines. The numbers are still there, but they're sitting there doing this.
Yeah.
Or they're on a video, or they have video games against the
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah,
It's not,
it's
And they're not
playing
they're
pool.
texting the person next to them, but
Yeah.
they're not talking.
they're not playing
Right.
ping pong or any
But
of
I
that
think
stuff.
that's a microcosm of their generation.
It absolutely is.
But even in my generation, you guys, we didn't have cell phones. I grew up I was born in the 70s.
She's from Canada too.
Canadian.
We're the same age.
We are? Yeah,
Oh.
because 80s,
Look at us.
totally born in, I was born in the 70s. Okay, 80s, I'm just kidding. Grew up in the 80s, but I'm telling you, it was all about having fun. There was no cell phones. There was nothing like that at all. We connected. We had sleepovers. We laughed. We danced. We knew how to communicate with people, and even family time. It was just I love the 80s. I'm just telling you, the 80s are amazing.
They are
I'll be
having.
6 weeks, I'll be 50.
I'm not even gonna. Okay, so I'm not
You
gonna
can't be that
say
much
my.
older than me. If you're even older than me, you're probably younger than me.
She looks damn good.
It's yoga.
yoga.
It's yoga.
But you're
It's
right.
yoga.
I thought my kids we have a loft in our house, and I put a foosball table,
Yeah.
and a TV, DVD player, and bean bags, and a couch. And my 16-year-old and her friends, they go upstairs and they go straight to her room, and I go check on them, and they're all just sitting.
And they shut the doors.
That
and
is
they shut the door,
crazy.
and they're not even talking, and they're all in
Yeah.
her room, spread out, just on the phone.
Yeah.
I will say though that the Marine Corps is great and veterans are great in general because you're forced to have that communication, right? You're forced to have that face-to-face
Of course.
communication. At least in the profession we were in, right? You're flying helicopters. Communication is
It's huge.
extremely important. Everybody's working roughly in one place during the day. If you're not out flying, I would hope that any companies listening to this would give a veteran a shot, even if they
course.
don't have the requisite experience on a resume. You can teach a veteran a technical
Absolutely.
skill.
Yeah.
You can teach them how to work within your organization. But you can't teach some of the soft skills sometimes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And these young 18, 19-year-olds who do their 4 or 5 years and then get out, there's a fantastic talent pool there that, I don't think people overlook it. I think society, and I think people understand what veterans bring to the table. I just don't know if they necessarily, in practice, know how to incorporate them into their business. Because they see somebody who was in the infantry or a mechanic, and they say mechanic, like that has nothing to do with what I'm doing. It's like, well, yeah, but they're technical. You know, they know how to work hard. They know how to show up on time.
Correct.
They know how to communicate.
Well, and then we give a lot of responsibility to
Very young people.
18, 19, 20-year-old Marines are turning wrenches and signing off helicopters that's safe for flight, that then we go, so we put our lives in their hands. When they say, this aircraft is good to launch, and then we go launching it, I've put my safety and my entire life in that young 19-year-old kid's.
Of course.
You know, like, I wonder if there's any kind of, like, veteran-owned company that acts as, like, a consultant-based company that just goes to businesses and, like, does an analysis of what they're currently doing, looks at their like HR practices, and is able to like educate them and like teach them how to put something like this into practice. Because I mean, when DEI was a thing, that was part of it, was bringing on veterans, you know. And so now that that's gone, however long it'll be gone, I am wondering, like, is there a company like that that's even out there that can do that? Is that like an open window for someone to be able to create a business like that? I mean, it sounds like there's a need, right?
You have to advocate for yourself, though, right? Because
For
no company's going to go out there and advocate for you. And I'll say this: there are a ton of great resources out there, right? Whether that's a resource that you earn, you know, through your service, like your GI Bill. For me, and I'll make a shameless plug, when I was trying to get into business school, I used a lot of the content from this group or this website called Sit Reps to Steer Co's. And those guys had gone through the business school application process in grad school, and, you know, staff NCOs transitioning to graduate school, young officers transitioning. And it's all free content, right? So there's a lot of resources out there, but the veteran has to put the time into it
To really find
and
them.
it's not, you know, you're a Marine, that's great, or you're a soldier, an airman, a sailor, and you've earned the title and you've done a lot of great work, and your service should be applauded. However, you know, that doesn't mean you're going to be handed a job when you get out. No matter how many soft skills or technical skills. Some will have an easier time getting a job, others will struggle.
So what do you recommend for veterans right now, like when they're about to transition? Like, what do you recommend, like the best steps for them to do?
Plan a year out. If you make the decision that you're going to get out, then what you need to do is you need to start your planning process at a minimum a year prior to separation.
Okay.
And the first thing I did was, you know, I took a piece of paper and I drew a line down the middle and I wrote, you know, the pros versus the cons of leaving active duty. I knew I wanted to stay in the reserves. So, you know, my situation I felt like was a little bit easier because I knew it was still going to be kind of part of the team, just not full time. So I wrote that down, and then I wrote down like a list of 10 things, like what do I want to be when I grow up? And from there, I just started, you know, I used LinkedIn, I used social media. I reached out to veterans who were in companies that I wanted to be a part of.
How did you find them? Like, did you just look them up on LinkedIn? Like,
yeah, I knew I wanted to get into real estate and real estate development, so I literally typed into Google top 10 real estate developers in Dallas, Texas. And then it came up with a bunch, and then I went to LinkedIn and I
started connecting.
Yeah, and I created an Excel spreadsheet where each tab was the name of a company, and then I would find names and contact information, and I wrote out a bunch of cold emails and LinkedIn, you know, messages, and I reached out to dozens and dozens of people to see if they would get on a phone call with me. And then I just started calling them and asking them questions, and finally determined for me the right path was I needed a little bit more formal education, since I wasn't leaving at a senior enough rank to justify going out and getting a position that I really wanted. So I needed to go through, I needed a longer runway.
Okay.
And I needed 2 years worth of graduate school. And I knew that I could pay for it with the GI Bill and, you know, still staying in the reserves. But I just needed that experience. So then once I determined what I wanted to do, then I went and found a list of schools that I felt like could help me get there, that were within my price range. And then I started reaching out to their alumni. And, you know, I did all this over probably an 8-month period when I was in Iraq on top of studying for the GMAT. I think I applied to 7 business schools and wrote, 25 different essays. And that's not to say, look at me, I did this great thing. It just took an intense period of focus. And I was fortunate that I was in Iraq, because when I got off from my shift and my job was done, I went back. I lived in a 15-man tent. I went back to a tent. I had 2 crates stacked on top of each other for a desk. And I had nothing to distract me. I had no wife, no kids, no TV, nothing.
Yeah.
I was in a situation that allowed me to focus. Yeah. But even if you're not, if you're stateside and you're going to be transitioning out, just recognize that's going to be a full-time job. Transitioning out can be a full-time job.
Well, and to Rob's point, what he doesn't say is it's that skill that is not a defined skill that the military teaches you is to plan. And so I decided to retire. And I backed up my retirement. I set my retirement date of 1 September of 2025, and I backed it up and 2 years prior. And so we were about 2.5 years. And I built we use a planning tool called a Plan of Action and Milestones, POAM.
Yep.
Okay.
And all I did was put down all the tasks, when they were due, who in the family, and I'm talking about. I moved my wife and kids summer of 24 to Texas. I still had a year left in New Orleans. Okay. So, I had to find an apartment. I had to sign a lease. I had to move my wife and kids. I had to set up the move. I had to find schools for them.
That's so much.
Yeah, I had to transfer all the cars, and luckily we remain Texas residents. But I built that plan of action and milestones to allow us to do that. And both my kids played club soccer, so I had to find club soccer teams.
That's rough.
Yeah, I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Tulsa. I was in San Antonio last week, and as we went through there, and as a task was done, it was signed off, and it was color coded and changed.
See, he's talking my language though.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I do, and that's
You
what
have
I
to.
love. You do.
But veterans are taught that, even though they don't realize it. That's what we do.
I don't even know how
we plan. We do rapid planning.
Like
we do long-term planning.
Yeah.
And I built that to get us back. Okay. Plan your retirement date. Where's it? Location.
Yeah.
Who's coming? Make a guest list. All of that. Now that ended the bottom few with the future job search. I said, you know what, babe, I got you to Texas. We bought a house. But I mean, once she said I could take some time off, thank you, sweetheart. I may be taking that a little bit too. But
hey, if you don't find a job with Raytheon, it sounds like you're pretty good with some home projects.
Yeah. And so I had a deputy when my last job was the G3. So what the G3 is, in the military, we use Napoleonic codes, developed by Napoleon to define what jobs. So 1 is admin, 2 is intelligence, 3 is operations, 4 is logistics. It goes all the way up to 9. So Marine Forces Reserve, based in New Orleans, Louisiana, is a 3-star commander, and the G3 is it's a colonel, which I was, and I run all operations for Marine Forces Reserve. And so you're probably the number 4 guy of a 60,000 man organization.
Holy shit!
But that's what I do for a living is I plan.
I'm like, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, our budget is, so my staff is about 150, and but I had to pay a mortgage and rent a house, or rent an apartment in there.
That's crazy. Did they help pay for that?
No, the Marine Corps doesn't, and so and then what did I do? I came home just about every weekend to Dallas because it's a short 50-minute flight home from New Orleans. Every Friday, I was like, 2 o'clock, guys, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I fly home, and I fly home Sunday night or Monday. I take a 6:30 flight Monday morning back to New Orleans. And, ended up doing that for about a year. But, we knew that year was going to be tough, and it would be, it would induce stress. But my wife and kids were, because it allowed my son to do 2 years at one high school in New Orleans, 2 years here in Texas. My daughter gets to go to one high school. And so I was willing to take that risk and deal with a little bit of extra stress in the life. And again, it's 2025, so I could FaceTime, I could call my kids anytime I want. I could track my kids from New Orleans.
Yeah.
My daughter's like, Dad, what are you doing downtown New Orleans in Bourbon Street?
Yeah.
How do I get rid of that one?
Yeah. But we learned to plan directly or indirectly, because everything in the Marine Corps, in the military and all the services, we are very good planners.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's an
You
intangible
have to be.
skill.
It's like life or death.
Yeah. What I would always say, even in New Orleans, because most of the stuff the reserves do is train, and I just wouldn't take it. I wouldn't get stressed out because I was like, no one's dying, no one's shooting at us.
Yeah.
I say it with my kids all the time. I have a 16-year-old daughter. I love her, but
They're intense.
life is tough, and I'm like, no one's dying. Dad, why aren't you taking this serious? Because no one's dying.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
We'll get through this.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I'll order that sweatshirt
You don't
tomorrow.
even know, Dad.
Yes,
That's my daughter.
For a 16-year-old, to her, it's a big
everything.
deal.
It's
My 18-year-old, it's
the
a
end
big
of the
deal.
world.
But no, to your point, there should be a company, and I think there are, companies are starting to realize that. But it's difficult. It's a very difficult market right now. And, one of the conversations I had with Wells Fargo is, well, we're doing an internal reorg, so we're hiring internally. And so we're not going to take the risk, to put a person in a position. So I'd love to see a veteran-based organization do that. I think it's a great idea for nonprofit. This is completely off subject, but I was sitting there the other day and thinking about, well, what if a lot of veterans need a purpose. And I spent my last 3 years working as an active duty guy, working in the reserves. Rob's a reservist. Most people stay in the reserves because they want that purpose, but it's part-time. With the floods that happened in Central Texas this year, one of my jobs at Mar Flores was emergency management. And so we deal with a lot of hurricanes.
Did you
we have
go out
Marines.
there?
We didn't deal with that because it didn't directly affect Marines. Hurricanes hit our sites in Florida or wildfires on the West Coast. We have to deal with evacuating Marines. And so I think I'm going to reach out to the head of emergency management for the state of Texas. And what if someone, don't steal my idea, America. What if someone developed a reserve emergency management corps focused on veterans? Just Dallas-Fort Worth alone has about 350,000 veterans.
I know. Yeah.
It's massive.
It is.
Maybe it's the American Red Cross, maybe it's FEMA, and you train these veterans, because a lot of veterans get out, and maybe you can attest, because they're tired of deploying.
Yeah.
They're tired of being
Yeah.
gone away from their families. And when I was gone for that year, my son, it affected him royally.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't talk to me when I was deployed on that deployment. We're very tight now. That was 2014. But I remember my wife took him to speak to someone, and he goes, "I don't want to talk about anything that starts with D or ends with D." And I was like, I remember my wife. I said, "Does he mean deployment, or does he mean dad?" He doesn't remember that, but I was telling him that the other day. But veterans need purpose.
Of course.
We have emergency. Hurricanes hit the Gulf Coast. What if we developed a corps where we trained former veterans? They work their 9-to-5 job, and if something pops up, that's who you call. Instead of having the Gator Navy, from Louisiana, of volunteer,
awesome.
but now you have trained volunteers. So when and the reason I was thinking, because when those floods happened, I saw a lot of veterans I knew going
Stepping
down
up.
and volunteering, but there was no hierarchical system. It
Right.
took them several days just to organize it, because
Right.
good ideas, but and so I just found the head of Texas Emergency Management on LinkedIn yesterday and sent him a friend or a LinkedIn request, and I'm gonna.
Hell yeah!
We're talking about like you'd create this organization where they like almost kind of retain their rank, that they had to like just fall in.
Not necessarily that there's even a rank structure associated with it.
Yeah.
But that you get trained. It's probably going to be state.
Yeah.
State trains you. And then you sign some contractual obligation,
Right.
4 years, and you are on a reserve callback stat. You meet maybe once every other month to do a little bit of training, CPR, Red Cross, search and rescue, and then when shit hits the fan, the state has a ready bench of trained people who can then now go and do search and rescue. Now can go do because.
Support services, right?
Yeah, FEMA is always understaffed.
And they're late.
Yes.
And they're always asking, American Red Cross, well, and the funny thing is, so one of the other potential veterans that I was thinking about this is a friend of ours, Mike Reyes. Thanks for standing me up, Mike. No.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike's
Just
a
kidding.
great
We're happy
guy.
to have you, Rob.
He lives out in Weatherford. He deployed with Rob and I in 15,
He did.
16.
He's a great guy.
But
Okay.
he just started as like the North Texas regional manager of. He's got it built with the Red Cross.
Okay.
And I was like, and then the Gulf Coast Red Cross is a former sergeant major of the Marine Corps. Which one? But so you have a lot of veterans, and veterans volunteer.
Yeah, they want to help.
Veterans want to help, and so it's very minimal training.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking about guys rappelling off helicopters or
Right.
doing
Just
trauma
search patterns and basic
but
CPR.
Right.
volunteers. Maybe
Yeah.
it's putting together kits or for
Sandbags or
sandbags.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
and then boom, there's an emergency. Let's send them there, and then you have
That's
the ability as the
amazing.
governor to even send these people. And then you use USARA. What's USARA stand for?
Oh, USARA is the uniform. It's basically the set of laws that doesn't allow a company to fire somebody for their federal
So
service.
there's
or
a
their
federal.
okay.
So for reservists,
Okay.
members of the National Guard, members of the Reserve, if you get activated, your company can't fire you because the federal government.
I didn't know
so
that was a law.
you
Yeah.
can
Awesome.
apply some type of similar USARA law that says these are state, employees who are here for disaster relief. You can't fire
And
them.
we've had so
Which would then-
many disasters.
It
Yeah.
would, and then
Like,
because you can only volunteer so much time. Like a
Right.
good friend of mine in Austin, he went and volunteered for 2 weeks for the floods, but he took vacation time. So now you go to your company cannot fire you.
That's amazing.
Because now, Governor Abbott has signed into state law that you will not fire these employees because they are, and then they have a mission.
right.
And it's, we learned similar type skills. I don't know. I was just pontificating the other day on that. So I'm,
I think you're really onto something. I think we should probably cut this out of the.
Yes. Don't steal my idea.
Yes,
Alan steals
that's
it.
Yeah.
Like I do.
Maybe I can
really-
run that state agency, but I don't want to live in Austin.
I really think that
It's almost
you're
like a-
onto something.
It's like a
That's an
it's almost like a
amazing
militia,
idea.
but instead of fighting, you're just
Just
people.
It's like a
volunteering.
militia.
It is a militia force
That's already
that is doing
like,
emergency
trained,
management.
Really.
There you
emergency
go. Perfect.
management militia, EMM.
Oh,
There we go.
I love that.
See what happens?
Guys
What happened?
who are drone qualified,
love
do search and
it.
rescue with
Yeah.
drones. There's
yeah.
skills that you could teach or people could take from the military.
Talking on a radio.
Yes.
If I had a radio
Yeah.
right now, I could
Comms guys.
I could talk to an aircraft
Yeah.
right now. It's not
Yeah.
that
So-
far.
But then it also
And-
provides a purpose.
Did I just hear
Okay.
a niner?
Yeah.
No, but I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you guys are like question. People are shopping with drone, or their groceries
delivered,
are delivered by a drone.
I've had one
That's
dropped off at my house. I've had
wild.
things dropped off in my driveway.
Okay.
Walmart did it to me.
How amazing is that? I
It
was
was
like,
awesome.
what is that? And I'm like, what is that? I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
that's a drone.
They dropped off like a little
like,
bag of like
yeah.
food stuff for my kids. It was not like I didn't order it. It
That's
was just like a trial
so
thing.
wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. Why did we get on that? Or why did I ask that question? I think you said something about a drone. No.
Yeah.
Because we use drones in the military. Veterans a lot of them are very tech savvy.
Oh,
it's a skill
yeah.
they can teach because we use
Sure,
drones
yeah.
for search. We're starting to use drones for search and rescue. But
You should be,
you
yeah.
train these guys. They keep a drone at their house. Now they go
Yeah.
out there and they're searching.
We use them for real estate too.
It's a
All the
capability
time.
gap. I have a friend who's a realtor in San Diego, and he makes videos.
Oh,
of them all the
yeah,
time.
man.
We need someone that does that.
Yeah, there's so many great people.
That's and veterans are really good at identifying capability gaps.
Yeah.
But finding a way to exploit's probably the wrong word, but to capitalize or exploit on that gap to fill it. And it just because I went to a concert in Waco this summer, country music concert, and it was a lot of the same performers who had just performed. It was only a few weeks after the disaster, and then they were talking about it, and I'm like, man, like we come together after these natural disasters, but a lot of times, a lot of people want to volunteer and they don't know how to.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do, and then we don't know what to do with all these people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's
Who
be
do I reach
honest,
out to?
the federal government does not have the ability to handle it. State government, not so much either. But if we built this, plus it goes back to veterans need a purpose. And if you gave them that purpose, and now they got their go bag in the garage, and boom, they get that call.
Yeah, they get a shirt,
And
right?
they're,
They get a
like,
shirt
yeah.
that's got their name
Love
on it.
shirts.
Yeah, everybody loves t-shirts.
Most come
Yeah.
under pressure,
Yes.
like because y'all are able to compartmentalize. Like
Yes.
it is just here's the task at hand. This is what I need
Yes.
to do. This is how long I have. So I'm going to get out of this. This is who I'm working with. Like,
Plus, not to
that's amazing.
disparage, civilians. Some people don't like being told what to do.
yeah.
You're in the military. You're told whether
Right.
they're good at taking orders,
Right.
and they're not going to push back and go, "Well, I don't know who this asshole is telling me to."
Right.
But they're going to go, "Okay, John, you want me to go search over there? I'm
You
going
got
over
it.
there."
Yeah.
He's probably already
Yeah.
over there searching before he told him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
honestly, that's why we want veterans working here too, is because we want someone that is purpose driven. We want someone that wants to help families. We want someone that understands their benefits, that can translate that in a way that other veterans are going to understand and relate to. And yeah, I mean, y'all are just extremely hard workers. Like, you know how to get shit done. You don't ask a lot of questions other than the things that are just pertinent that you need to know. And that's one that saves a shitload of time for everybody. Like, you're excellent communicators. I mean, there's just so many positives that you bring to the table. It's just a matter of educating, honestly. Now, I do have a question.
Okay, I do too. When you're done,
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to know, this is me personally, I want to know, what was the biggest oh shit moment in your career?
before you answer it, that's funny because I was just about to ask Rob is. How many times did you think you're going to die?
Yeah,
I know, that was kind of my
I gotta
question.
know.
Rob
my
wasn't. I can
question.
tell you mine.
Let's hear it.
And Rob
Don't
was
hold back.
in the vicinity.
Am I
but-
going
and-
to cry?
No. Rob may
Make
know
me
this. So
cry.
again, I've flown helicopters
I'm
for
like you
25
over.
of my 26 years, and the CH-53 Echo is an incredibly reliable plane.
It's very reliable.
When Rob and I were deployed in 15, 16, again, I'd already done 3 deployments to Iraq, a deployment to Okinawa, a year in Afghanistan, where my first flight in Afghanistan, our first mission, the other aircraft in the section got it lit up and its engine shot out. Shot numerous times in Iraq. The only time I ever thought I was going to die in the military was with Sean Graham.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you know.
Sean, one of my peers loves Sean.
Yeah,
Talked to
Sean
him.
Graham, great guy. He's out in Yuma right now at our weapons and
At
tactics
Moss one,
school. So I always lived. So I'm a very senior aviator at this point, and Rob and Sean are new in their aviation career.
Very junior.
Our CEO is like, I want you to take 3 plan the XO, the squadron, so the number 2 guy. He goes, I want you to take 3 planes up from the island of Okinawa, which is on the southern end of the Japanese island chain, up to mainland Japan for a couple days to do some training.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wintertime, so it's probably February time frame. Well, I'd always operated by the rule 3. 3 strikes and I'm done. 3 things happen, and the flight's over.
Yep.
I think that's a
We
really
did that
real
too. That was one I incorporated when I got a
And-
little bit older.
I should operate, because I'm more of a soccer player than a baseball player, so I should just do yellow card, red card, you're done. But that morning I woke up with a head cold. And as an aviator, you never want to fly with a head cold, even commercially.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
of the pressure, but
Yeah.
helicopters tend to fly low. Well, the ceilings were incredibly low, so that means the cloud deck was low. So we have a flight of 3. I'm with Sean, Slava, I don't know who Slava's co-pilot was, and then Lemon's Hodor
Steve
was
Lemon.
with someone as well. I'm dash 3 of this flight, and we're supposed to aerial refuel.
He's in the third position. He's in the
Yeah,
back.
so the 53 can actually take gas airborne from a giant tanker aircraft, C-130. But the cloud deck is really, really low, like 500 feet. And so we're pushing north. So strike 1 is my head cold. So we're pushing up north. The tanker comes on. The flight lead is this guy named Hodor. He's a great guy. And he's like, hey, we're supposed to aero refuel at 1,000 feet. Are you guys comfortable doing it at 500 feet? And we're like, yeah, okay, I guess whatever.
That's low enough.
That is the
500 feet
minimum.
Is like low enough.
It's
Yeah.
the minimum altitude you
yeah.
can do it at.
Okay.
And we're like, okay. And so he's getting ready to get into position, and we're getting ready to extend our probe. So I'm in the left seat, and I tell the young lieutenant, I'm like, hey, go ahead and extend the probe. And I look over, and the 53 has 3 hydraulic gauges, or three independent systems. And the utility system, the quantity just starts dropping.
oh
my
my
And
god.
so I'm like, okay, that happens. We leak a lot of fluid. So,
When you extend the probe too, you get some.
and sometimes, so I'm like, you know what? Hey guys, we have an in-flight replenishment system. So I'm like, to my crew, I'm like, start pumping. So they're pumping. The pump's empty. So they get some extra cans because we fly there. So they fill it up. Sir, we're out of cans. So we bring the probe back in, and it's still leaking. So I'm like, tell the other two aircraft, hey guys, there's an island up here. I have to, I have a leak somewhere. So luckily there's an island. So the island of Amami. So it's actually a Japanese resort island, but we were not supposed to land there. So we start turning. I said, Sean's flying. I'm like, hey Sean, turn towards the island. I think at that point I grabbed the controls and I'm like, navigate me to, and he can't find the airport. And so I don't know if we ever flew together.
I think we did fly together because you did one of my hack check flights.
Did I?
You did my night hack check flight.
Oh, you have to remind me on that one.
Yeah, we did. It was good.
I didn't fail you like Montez.
You did not fail me.
Yeah,
no.
I love Chris Montez, but I had to fail him.
We just stayed local.
Oh,
it was fine. It was great. Great flight. We've only ever flew with each other maybe 2 times or 3 times.
Wow.
There's 26 pilots in a squadron, but I was junior enough that I was flying with only people who were like more slightly senior to me. Yeah. He's the XO at the time.
Okay.
He didn't really have a lot of reason to fly with me per se.
But my entire career, I was taught you got to remain calm in the aircraft. You got to be a consummate professional. And so
you're like,
so we're flying. I'm like, Sean, where is this runway? Where's the airport? He's like, I don't know. Well, the other 2 aircraft decided to turn, and I told them, go to Japan. We'll catch up with you later. They decided to turn and follow me.
Oh.
And then at this point, the Dash 2 aircraft is Slava, who's one of my closest friends. We did multiple deployments together, and he goes, hey, you have black smoke coming out of your rotor head. So we had a hydraulic leak, and when a hydraulic leak burns, it burns black. But he now tells me I'm on fire. I wasn't actually on fire, but there was potential for fire. So now I'm getting a little more agitated. I'm like, Sean, find the runway. And he's like, I don't know where it's at. So I'm like, Dash 2, tell me which way. So they direct me. So we come in to land, and I call the airport, and the Japanese controller's like, you were denied. And I declared an emergency, so they're supposed to allow. And he's like, no. And I said, I'm landing. So we land.
Yeah.
But that's not. So that's strike 2. That's only strike 2.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so
the smoke was in 3?
So we find the leak. We fix the hose that had busted. We repair it. You know who it was? It was Studi.
Yeah.
Now Gunny Studi.
Brian Studi.
Brian Studi.
Fantastic guy.
He came to work for me at 302.
Yeah,
so we fixed that. He's one of the guys that fixes it. We replenish the system. We're all good. Japanese are like, get off our island. I'm like, all right, everybody good? We're ready to go. We've lost our tanker, but we refuel. So we have just enough gas to get to mainland Japan without having to tank. Because we stopped and topped off. So we take off. I pull into the 3rd position. They keep going. Flying for about an hour, and I give young Sean Graham the controls, and I'm like, you got him. I finally take a breath. Okay, we're good. The sun's starting to come out. The clouds are up to like 1,000 feet now. We're an hour and a half, 2 hours out of mainland Japan. And then Sean goes, hey, sir, did you kick the cyclic? So in a helicopter, it's a little bit different than a plane. You have 2 sets of controls. You have a cyclic, very similar to an airplane. And you have a collective. This is your power. So this is your kind of like your throttle.
Okay.
And he goes, sir, did you kick the cyclic? Mine is connected to his mechanically. So when he pushes left, it goes left in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And he goes, something's wrong.
Oh, man.
Do you have binding in the flight controls?
Kind of. So I grab the controls, and the controls start moving on their own.
Oh my gosh.
And so we have what's called an artificial flight control panel. It augments the flight controls to make it easier to fly. And the panel is lighting up and losing power. Lighting up and losing. And so at this point in my career, I'd been flying for 16, 15 years and was probably one of the more experienced pilots in the squadron, let alone the community. And I'd seen a lot of emergencies. I've had fires. I've had engines shot out. I've had every emergency probably known to man. I mean, I think I'd had 4 fires in my career, but I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And I can't control the aircraft. And so we're about 400 feet, and the aircraft just starts pitching down and turning left. And so I look at Sean, I'm like, Sean, turn off.
My neck is hurting right now.
But we have the ability to turn off our artificial flight controls. And once you turn them off, then you're flying. Basically, you're manually controlling the movements of the aircraft. And it's tough. It's an increased set of you have to put a lot more physical strength.
A lot of force.
A lot of force into it.
It's like driving without power steering, but a little bit worse.
Yeah, it's a lot worse. But we practice it occasionally. It's very physically taxing. And I'm like, Sean, turn off the AFCS. turn off the servos. Sean's kind of frozen, and I joke with Sean because every time I see him, I remind him of this. And I was like, "You were basically in the fetal position," and he and I'm like, "Sean, turn off the effing servos."
He probably
And
was just like,
I gotta call my family, man. We're about to die.
Because I can't let go. If I don't know what the aircraft's going to do. By the time, and the crew chief came up, so it was now Gunny Moat.
Yeah, Staff Sergeant Mo. Server came up at 772.
Yeah, every flight I flew up there, I flew up there.
Yeah, he's great.
So he was a staff sergeant at the time. So the staff sergeant comes up and he's like, "I got it." But before he gets it, young lieutenant, now Major Graham, reaches over and turns him off. By the time he turns it off, and now I'm controlling the aircraft, the aircraft had turned 180 degrees and had lost about 300 feet of altitude. So I'm about 100 feet over the water.
You're that low, really?
Yeah, it lost a lot of altitude. But I have 24 people in the back.
Oh.
I have some Marines who are sleeping through it. I have the crew chief said, one Marine's throwing up due to the, and then one of our young corpsmen, she's crying.
Yeah.
And it's very turbulent when you're flying
Of course.
with servos off.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, the only place I can land is in the water or an hour back to the island of Amami. And I'm like, I tell the other two aircraft, I'm pushing to Amami. They turn to follow me to make sure. Okay. But I'm like, I told Slava, who's one of my close, I said, Slava, I think I'm going in the drink. And so I prepare the crew to go into the water. And because at this point, a lot of pilots and a lot of guys, we're very analytical. We're very logical, mechanical. Yeah. I don't know what's wrong with the aircraft. And so I have to prepare for the worst. So we end up getting back to the island.
Oh my
God. They're like, you're back. They denied me. I said, I'm landing. So we land. Yeah. I shut off the aircraft. I get out. My hands are cramped because I've been flying for an hour.
I bet.
I remember Mo's like...
And your anxiety, I'm sure.
Yeah. Mo tells me the next day, he goes, "You were ghost pale." Slava walks up to me, puts a cigarette in my mouth, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." Well, about 2 hours later, we find the mechanical problem in logic, but none of us had ever seen it before. So basically, we had this pressure switch on our servos, had a lot of grease in it, and it was the threads were worn. It was sliding off. So as it slides off, servo 1, it automatically transfers to servo 2.
Got it.
Well, servo 2 was not actually connected. Pre-flight, it looked, but the pins were all broken.
Oh wow!
So it had no power, so it would transfer back to 1.
Where's the quality control
so
though?
It was going back and on off. So we were losing servos, kicking them back on for a second, losing them.
Oh man!
And then I'm what we call the detachment officer in charge. So now I got to find rooms for like 60 people in Japan on this little island. It's the island's super. They have like 3 hotels, so we disperse everybody. But I'm shaking. We spend the night. The next day we fix the aircraft, but I called the CO and said, "I'm done. I'm done flying." Now this CO lives here. He's still a friend of mine, and he goes, "Why don't you just keep flying to Japan without servos?"
Oh my gosh!
And I said, "Sir." Yeah. We had to bring in a V-22 came in and brought us some parts to actually fix it. And I said, I quit flying. And I got on the V-22. Slava took the debt. They went up there.
Did you go back to Okinawa?
I flew back to Okinawa. I didn't fly for 2 weeks. Coincidentally, my wife, I talked to her a couple days later. And then
a couple days later?
Does
she know that?
She's like, something's wrong with you. And it wasn't for a few weeks till I told her what was wrong with me. But I was shaking. Really shaking. I remember because Mo's like, "I wasn't worried, sir, because you were flying." I was like, "Well, I'm glad I thought I was going to die, but that's the only time."
I would have cried.
I thought I was going to die.
Like that was your moment where
being shot at. Like I said, 3 Iraq deployments, back-to-back Afghanistan. I never thought I was, that moment I was going to die. And then the CO was like, once I told him what happened, he goes, "I've never seen that." He was a very experienced pilot as well. Fast forward to when I was in command. It happened 2 more times to me.
The same
exact scenario happened to me.
That's why it happened to you the first time, so that you knew it.
Do you know Ryan Eater?
That's right.
Ryan Eater?
Yeah, I know Eater. Yeah.
It happened to Ryan Eater and I over Alabama, and he freaked out. He was the aircraft commander, and I was his co-pilot. I was like, easy problem, dude. Landed in...
Dude, don't even worry about this.
I almost died a couple years ago.
That's exactly what's happening.
You shouldn't even bring
because we were like at 3,000 feet. We landed in Dothan.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked at the avionics guy. I said, "Go check the pressure switch." He's like, "No, it's not that, sir." And he goes, "How'd you know that?" I'm like, "Because it happened to me in 2016.
In 2012.
Do you know
Yeah.
Yawani? Hey, Yawani?
No.
She's younger than you. It happened, she was flying with a student, and it happened at the airfield.
They need to check those.
Yeah.
It's an older airframe.
It is.
Yeah, so seriously, what is
Airframe.
the quality control on
Yeah.
that?
And it's good.
It's very good.
But like, this is something that if you visually check, you wouldn't know unless you unscrewed
Oh,
it. And
got it.
it
Maybe
doesn't
they
get-
should like work that into the
Yeah,
quality
that's-
But
control.
yeah, it happened with Yawani. So they called up and they're like, she's like freaking out over the radio, and I said land. So she lands. So I walked out, kicked out her co-pilot, who was an FRS student, jumped in. I said, oh, it's just this.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that's the only time
Did you
Sean.
write that up and send it to Sikorsky?
Yeah, but
Did that
yeah.
like
So
3 times?
his peer Sean is the only time in 26 years I thought I was gonna die.
That's amazing.
That's
That is
crazy.
wild. No way would I would have been like fetal position too, just like bawling.
I mean, my first night in
freaking out.
Afghanistan, we got indirect fire, and I was like, I just went back to bed. We got
That's
indirect, you know.
you're insane. That's like
Yeah.
a totally different level.
Plus, I hate the water.
Me too.
Oh, I'm terrified.
I mean, I love to swim, but you guys, it's yeah,
There's
water.
too much shit in there that I don't know what exists.
Yeah.
So we fly up and down the San
Yeah.
Diego coast a lot, and I'm sure Rob saw this.
Oh.
So San Onofre is a huge surf area south of Orange County, north of San Diego.
Yeah.
And every time we fly over there, you see 100 surfers out there, but you see 12-foot great whites underneath.
No.
I
wouldn't.
saw a great white out there one time. I swear it was like probably 14 feet.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest shark I've ever seen in my life.
And it's just going underneath the surfers, so I'm terrified
Yeah.
of going in the water.
they're massive, and you see them from the air, and you're like, that thing will kill you.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Are they beautiful? No.
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 They're black eyes. They're deadly.
Are they
6,
gonna
7,
eat
however you
you?
want deployments.
Yeah.
I've never been on a boat.
You know, so I did. Let's see, my first deployment, the one we went on. I guess we were on the same deployment because we were in the same squadron. But me, and 7 other pilots were detached to a different squadron that was there. It's kind of this. It's not a patchwork, right? But it's multiple different types of aircraft. So Hueys and Cobras and Ospreys and 53s. They're all attached to this Osprey squadron, and then that new squadron goes and deploys on a boat. So I deployed on the USS Bonhomme Richard as part of the first MEU, and I did that twice. Although the second time I wasn't part of the MEU, I was part of the UDP. But the MEU boat broke, so they sent the UDP.
Oh yeah, that's when
When
Billy went on the.
Billy Rain
Okay.
went on that. So I ended up spending a grand total, I think, over 2 deployments, 5 to 5.5 months on the ship. There's a lot of scary times being on the boat. I remember one time coming in, and it was the darkest night I'd ever seen. We were a couple 100 miles off the coast of South Korea. What is that, the East China Sea? It was the South China Sea. I can't remember which one. But, you know, we had a good fix to the boat with our navigation system, with our TACAN, but you know, I was flying with Trevor Tingle at the time, and we couldn't see anything. You couldn't see it, and then finally somebody opens up a door on the ship, and our night vision goggles kind of get flooded with light, and we see it. And, you know, those are times where you know, we were probably 0.3 away, 0.2, you know, on an approach to spot 7. So you're in danger. You know you're in danger, but you don't know how much you're in danger. I think one time that stands out to me is we did a deployment for training exercise out to El Centro, California, which is along the I-8, a couple hours outside of San Diego between
Interstate 8.
Yeah.
California, like we call it I-35.
Yeah.
They call it the 8.
They just call it the 8,
yeah.
the
Okay.
15, the 10,
The
the
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay.
And for my 12 years, I was stationed in California, and I always called it Interstate 5.
Yeah.
Interstate 8 in California.
But they're like, huh?
It's the 8.
Interstate?
I
No,
adopted
it's
it.
the
I
5.
called it the 5. The 15,
Yeah.
the 8. So it's El Centro is almost halfway between Yuma, Arizona, and San Diego, California, and it's a military kind of it's a poor rural community, but there's a Navy base there, which is interesting because it's 2 hours away from the coast. But it's the home of where the Blue Angels train during the winter.
Who are the Blue Angels?
The Blue Angels are the Navy
Performance.
demonstration
Oh,
team.
yes.
The guys that do the
Yeah.
formation flying,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Okay.
And they're painted blue and yellow.
Yeah.
So they have a bunch of, you know, support service out there. They got a nice runway, they got a hangar, and when they're on doing their tour, you know, those spaces can be used for other military units to train. And and we trained out there anyways. We would just have to fly 45 minutes to get there. occasionally we would go out there for 3, 4, 6 weeks at a time to go train. And at this point, I think there was an exercise going on. We periodically, the Marine Corps on the West Coast, really on either coast, but on the West Coast, would do big training exercises with multiple different units from 29 Palms to Miramar to Camp Pendleton and Yuma. Mm-hmm. So we were out there for an exercise, and I was at the time I was almost an aircraft commander. I think I was getting close to aircraft commander. I hadn't quite done my
Was this
check.
the MAG DFT?
No, this was attack support / it was like blue chromite or something like that, one of those exercises. But I was flying with this female pilot, and she was getting a division leader check.
Mimi?
No, I was flying with Ann.
Ann.
I was flying with Ann at the time. And she was getting a division leader check, which means that when you're a division leader, you have the authority to lead more than 2 aircraft in a flight, so 3 or 4 aircraft.
That is so much pressure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of responsibility because
course.
you're not only responsible for your aircraft, but you're
Yeah.
responsible for the tactical employment, of the other 2 or 3. And I was this very senior co-pilot at the time. I was very close to getting my aircraft commander status, so they put me as her. No, I was an aircraft commander because she was going for division, so I was an aircraft commander at the time. So, but I was flying as a co-pilot at this time. And so what that means is that they put somebody who had enough experience to kind of maybe take the pressure off her a little bit. Okay. She was doing a great job. We were doing kind of a fictional scenario where we were attacking an objective, landing an objective, and dropping off some Marines. We actually didn't have anybody in the back, but, it was notional, right? So we had 3 aircraft. I'm in the dash 1 position coming to land. I'm on the controls. She's running the flight, and there's 2 aircraft behind us. And we come in to do our landing profile. We get probably 125 feet, 45 knots, and then the whole aircraft just literally goes. It sounded like
my God.
We lost all the generators. It's a lot scarier at the time than looking back at it.
Did they kick right back on? Was it a brownout?
No, I had to reset.
Brownout?
I reset them really quick, so I couldn't tell you if it was a brownout or what. But I just remember resetting them. But yeah, I mean, you just lose everything. It just goes boo.
Trained on what?
Okay.
Yes. So we have a standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
And we have emergency procedures, and certain emergency procedures have memory items.
Yeah.
And you have to memorize them. So my 05 command tour was called the Fleet Replacement Squadron. So newly winged helicopter pilots who come from flight school, they select the aircraft they're going to fly. Rob and I selected the 53. They go to this squadron, 302 is what it's called, and they learn to fly. And all we do the entire 6 months they're there is test them on their emergency procedures. They have to have them memorized.
Oh, wow.
So you build the muscle memory on what to do, where it's second nature. Something happens, you just you do it. Because you can't freeze, especially in a helicopter.
In your trainings, though, do you actually have things that are meant to fail so that they actually experience the failing?
In our aircraft, no. It's all simulated.
Simulated. I mean, you can manipulate things, kind of.
So you can decrease power on an engine. The new replacement helicopter has a mode where, because it's all... so we had analog gauges.
The dials.
Yeah.
The new helicopter is digital. So they have the ability to simulate failure of instruments and engines without actually failing
that's
them.
cool.
In flight? Wow,
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really nice programs. Because the reason I asked him was a brownout. I was doing autos one time down in North Island, which you're not supposed to do, but I was doing them when I was a captain on Mexico, and we had all the generators kicked off in the flare.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's kind of scary because everything goes dark, right?
Kind of.
You lose the ability to communicate within there in the cockpit, because we fly with helmets with a microphone.
Of course.
So in this scenario, we were coming to land, and everything, it literally did sound like, like an old TV down, right? And so what I did is I immediately just executed a wave off, meaning, I got the aircraft into a position where we were climbing away from the ground, which looking back at it, I should have probably just committed to landing and turned an air emergency into a ground emergency is what you brief. However, I didn't know what was really going on at the time, and so for some reason I was just triggered to execute that wave off.
Was Ann yelling at you too?
She was pretty upset. She was pretty upset because it was her division leader check. But
who's giving her the check?
Oh, I think it was Kelly Atwood was giving her the check that day. Yeah, Drunk Monkey was. So we executed the wave off, and she calls it. She says, hey, there's something wrong with the helicopter. Eventually, we got the generators back on, and we're going to fly back to El Centro. It's probably a 25-minute flight. And when we fly back, we notice that the flight controls start to jump. They start to vibrate. They start to vibrate a lot more than they should. They're vibrating. You know, you always sometimes feel something in the controls, but these were noticeably vibrating. And I looked at our utility gauge, and it was just bouncing back and forth. And I looked at Ann, and I said, hey, I think that there's something wrong with either with the accessory gearbox or there's something wrong with the flight controls. Let's just go touch this thing down into no hover landing. Let's just real easy and nice. She elected to do a roll-on landing, which was fine. I'm not, knocking her for that.
Damn it, Ann.
Yeah, damn it, Ann. But here's the thing. We came in and to land, our landing parameters for a roll-on landing, because our helicopter has wheels, is theoretically you can touch down greater than 40 knots, but you can't let your nose wheel hit the ground faster than 40 knots because it will shimmy. We came in pretty fast. I was not on the controls this time. We were probably like 65 to 70 knots when we touched down with the mains. Mm-hmm. And then the nose came down, and then it was the most violent shaking I've ever had in my life. Yeah. I felt like somebody was grabbing me and shaking me. Everybody in the crew started screaming, including myself.
Oh my
it was
God.
just like this visceral, guttural yelling and screaming. My vision was blurred. Everybody, it was nuts. So what I did was I just reached up and I just killed all three engines. The brakes, I tried to step on the brakes weren't working. So I just killed all three engines. Everybody's still screaming, and we start to kind of veer off the runway. And we never got off the runway. Our nose wheel was probably 3 or 4 feet from the grass. And then we get towed back, right? Long story short, there was a massive chip, the size of, the size of like a chicken nugget is the only thing I can think of in the accessory gearbox, and it was causing massive power fluctuations that were causing utility system to have serious issues.
To put it in a frame of reference, the CH-53 is 50 years old. Okay. It was designed, the original, was designed probably in the 50s, the earlier models, but the 3-engine variant that we flew, it took its first flight 50 years ago.
Wow.
So it is an older aircraft. With these older aircraft, and because the Marine Corps is so small, so when I came in the Marine Corps, I think we had 192 total aircraft. There's about 150 left.
Wow, I did not know it was that.
So Sikorsky helicopter out of Connecticut makes it. But Sikorsky doesn't make, just like Lockheed doesn't make every part for the F-35. Mm-hmm. They have subcontractors.
Right.
So a lot of the subcontractors for these parts don't exist anymore. They've gone out of business. And you can't go to company A and go, hey, I need 150 of this part, because financially they're like, well, I'll sell you 2,000 of them. Yeah. The Marine Corps doesn't need that. So they have to. So what they do is they take the part out, they send it over to our aviation logistics squadron and say, hey, have these 20-year-old Marines take it apart and rebuild it and see if they can fix
it out
and build a new one and replace the insides. As with any older vehicle, older car, you experience more problems because there's wear and tear, and then there's no parts to replace. So you have to refurbish the parts yourself.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So for larger air, for the Air Force who buys, tenfold what we buy, they have a little bit more, or if there's a commercial variant of the aircraft. Okay. Sorry. Let's wrap it up then.
Okay, guys. We're down to 1 minute. Could you hear the whisper?
I don't like that we have to pick our time
Honey,
before we start.
Oh, dear, I know, but
as you get more and more advanced, you'll learn.
Yeah,
we should just set it for like 4 hours, and then that way, if we end early, it's fine.
Well, this allows us next year, whenever, to come back for part 2.
Y'all are gonna come back before then.
We will.
Bring your wives.
Oh no.
Yeah.
You should do a separate one with wives. I think you would love it.
We will, absolutely.
Thank y'all so much for coming. This has been so fun. I hope y'all have enjoyed it.
It's been great. Your hospitality's been fantastic. Really do appreciate it. Beautiful office space.
Thank
Wonderful,
you.
kind people. Thank you for sharing your stories, your voice. It really truly matters, and I really hope whoever is listening that it has touched you and just giving you some hope, though, to find your purpose, because there was a lot of great discussion tonight about veterans really finding what they want to do after they serve our country. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very
Subscribe.